Your money isn't just yours anymore. It belongs to this family.
She said it like it was nothing, like it was her right. But standing there listening to her, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just control, it was theft. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 32, slender with shoulder-length chestnut hair and a habit of tying it into a loose knot when I'm stressed. People say I look calm, but that's only because I've learned to hide anxiety well. As an interior designer in Chicago, I've spent years building a career from scratch, long nights, difficult clients, and one failed partnership that taught me never to fully trust anyone with my finances again. That morning, I was sitting at my small kitchen island, coffee turning cold beside me, reviewing my budget for the studio I was about to launch. Every dollar mattered. I opened my banking app and froze. A charge, $2,400, then another, $1,800, flights, resort bookings, Hawaii. My heart started pounding. Olivia, you okay? Mia Thompson's voice came through the phone. Mia, my best friend since college, that is vibrant and sharp-tongued, with curly blonde hair and an instinct for spotting trouble before it happens. She works in marketing and trusts absolutely no one when it comes to money, especially family. I didn't make these charges, I whispered. She didn't hesitate. Then someone else did. Check everything. Cards, passwords now. I swallowed hard and kept scrolling. The total climbed past $5,000. That's when Ethan walked in. My husband, tall, broad-shouldered, always perfectly put together in his office shirts, had a calm, easygoing personality that once made me feel safe, but lately he'd been distant, busy, distracted. Oh, hey, he said, barely glancing at me. I've got a long day. Ethan, I said, my voice tight. Did you use my credit card? He frowned, confused. No, why would I? I turned the screen toward him, my hands shaking. Then who did? And for the first time that morning, a quiet, unsettling thought crept into my mind. Someone close to me had access. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had printed every transaction, highlighting times, locations, and merchant names with a precision that came from years of managing demanding clients. The charges weren't random, they followed a pattern. Same travel agency, same luxury resort chain. I logged into my email and found confirmation receipts I had never opened, all forwarded to an unfamiliar secondary address. My chest tightened. This wasn't just theft, it was planned. I drove straight to the travel agency listed on the statement. Behind the counter stood Daniel Reeves, a man in his early 40s with neatly combed, dark hair, rectangular glasses, and a polite but guarded demeanor. He had the kind of practiced professionalism that suggested he'd handled difficult clients before. When I showed him the transaction ID, his expression shifted just slightly. Yes, he said carefully. This booking was made in person, a group package, 5 travelers. Do you remember who paid for it? I asked. He hesitated, then turned his screen toward me, and there it was. A scanned copy of my credit card, my name, my number. But the signature wasn't mine. Instead, it was a bold, confident script I recognized instantly. Margaret. My mother-in-law, Margaret Hayes, was a woman in her early 60s, always impeccably dressed, silver blonde hair, styled to perfection, posture straight, as if she were constantly being judged. She carried herself with authority, the kind that made waiters nervous and family members obedient. From the moment I met her, she made it clear she didn't respect what I did. Decorating isn't a real business, she once told me with a thin smile. And suddenly everything clicked. The questions she used to ask, casual, almost harmless. Do you keep your card saved online? Is your bank secure? At the time, I thought she was just making conversation. Now, I saw it differently. This wasn't an accident. She had been watching, waiting, and somehow she had taken exactly what she wanted. I didn't call ahead. I drove straight to Margaret's house, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. When she opened the door, she looked exactly as she always did, perfect. Margaret Hayes stood there in a tailored cream blazer, her silver blonde hair styled flawlessly, her expression calm, almost amused, as if nothing in the world could truly shake her. Olivia, she said smoothly, stepping aside, you look tense. I walked in without answering, my pulse hammering. "You used my credit card," I said, placing the printed statements on her marble counter. She glanced down, barely interested, then poured herself tea before responding. "I don't see the issue," she replied, her tone cool. "It's family money." The words hit harder than I expected. "It's not yours," I shot back. "You had no right." Before she could answer, the front door opened behind me. Ethan stepped in, loosening his tie, his tall frame filling the doorway. He looked between us, confused. "What's going on?" I turned to him, desperate for support. "Your mother stole from me." Margaret let out a soft, dismissive laugh. "Such a dramatic word." Ethan frowned, running a hand through his dark hair. "Olivia, maybe there's a misunderstanding." That was the moment something inside me cracked. "There's proof," I said, my voice shaking. "Receipts, signatures, she planned this." But Ethan didn't look at the papers. He looked at his mother. "Mom wouldn't do something like that," he said quietly. The room went silent. I felt it then, not just betrayal, but displacement, like I was standing in someone else's life, arguing for a place I didn't actually have. As I gathered my papers, my phone buzzed, a message from Claire Bennett, a high-profile client in her late 30s, known for her sharp eye and even sharper standards. "We need to pause the project, indefinitely." My stomach dropped, another loss, another crack forming beneath my feet. And standing there in Margaret's pristine kitchen, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. No matter how hard I fought, I didn't belong in this family the way I thought I did. I didn't argue with Ethan that night. I didn't cry, didn't explain, didn't try to convince him of anything. Instead, I went quiet. And that silence was the first real decision I made for myself. The next morning, I opened a brand new bank account under my name only, transferring what little untouched savings I had left. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt a small, fragile sense of control returning. I spent hours reviewing every statement, every login, every digital trace. I changed passwords, enabled security alerts, and documented everything with careful precision, like building a case no one could ignore. Mia didn't ask questions when I called her. She just said, "Good, now we do this properly." 2 days later, she introduced me to Lauren Brooks, a lawyer in her late 30s with sharp features, to dark hair pulled into a tight bun, and a reputation for being relentless in financial dispute cases. Lauren spoke quickly, confidently, her eyes scanning my documents like she was already 10 steps ahead. "Like, this isn't just a family issue," she said. This is fraud." Hearing the word out loud sent a chill through me, but also clarity. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining things. Meanwhile, life didn't pause to let me recover. With Claire gone, I was left scrambling until an unexpected email came through. Ryan Miller, a young entrepreneur in his early 30s, tall, slightly disheveled but energetic, had just opened a boutique cafe and needed interior design help on a tight budget. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. When we met, he smiled and said, "I don't need perfect, I need real." And somehow, that felt exactly like what I needed too. So while everything around me felt like it was breaking, I began rebuilding quietly, carefully, and this time, on my own terms. I stopped reacting and started preparing. Every night after working on Ryan's cafe design, I sat at my desk, building a timeline so precise it felt like assembling a puzzle where every piece pointed to one person. Bank statements, transaction IDs, IP logs, forwarded emails. I printed everything, labeled them, cross-referenced dates. Lauren had told me documentation wins cases, and I took that seriously. But it wasn't just about proving Margaret used my card. It was about showing intent. The breakthrough came when I noticed repeated payments linked to the same names 3 women who appeared again and again across hotel bookings and spa packages. I searched deeper and found tagged photos online. Margaret smiling in Hawaii, surrounded by friends who clearly weren't paying for themselves. One of them, Vanessa Cole, and a sharply dressed woman in her late 50s with a loud laugh and a taste for luxury, had publicly posted about a girl's getaway without mentioning who funded it. That was the moment everything shifted. This wasn't a one-time act. It was a pattern. Meanwhile, something subtle began to change at home. Ethan started asking questions, small ones at first. "Why did you separate your accounts? Why are there legal documents on your desk?" His tone wasn't defensive anymore, it was uncertain. I didn't answer directly, I just said, "You'll see." For the first time, he didn't argue. And outside the chaos, my world was quietly expanding. Ryan introduced me to another client, Sophie Lang, a boutique owner in her early 40s, elegant and detail-oriented, who loved my raw, practical design style. "You don't overcomplicate things," she told me, that's rare. Within weeks, I had 2 active projects. Not big, not perfect, but real. While Margaret was spending what wasn't hers, and I was building something she could never take. And when the time came, I wouldn't just confront her, I would prove everything. I didn't choose a dramatic setting, no restaurant, no public scene, just Margaret's living room on a quiet Sunday afternoon where everything looked polished and controlled just like her. I invited everyone under the pretense of a family discussion. When I arrived, Margaret was already there, poised as always in a pale blue dress, her posture flawless, her expression unreadable. Beside her sat 2 of her friends, including Vanessa Cole, who greeted me with a bright, oblivious smile, clearly unaware of what was about to unfold. Ethan stood near the window, arms crossed, his face tense, like he already sensed something was wrong. I didn't waste time. I placed a thick folder on the table and opened it slowly. "I'm not here to argue," I said, my voice steady, almost detached. "I'm here to show facts, one by one." And I laid everything out, transaction records, booking confirmations, timestamps, even printed screenshots of social media posts. The room grew quieter with every page. Then I turned to Vanessa. "You enjoyed Hawaii, didn't you?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Of course, Margaret arranged everything." That was all I needed. I slid forward a document showing my card, used for her reservation. Her smile faltered. Another friend shifted uncomfortably, mumbling something about thinking it was a group gift. Margaret finally spoke, her tone sharper now. "This is unnecessary, Olivia." I met her gaze without flinching. "No, this is accountability." Ethan stepped forward, flipping through the documents himself this time. I watched the exact moment his expression changed, confusion turning into realization, then something heavier. "Mom," he said quietly, "this is real." Margaret didn't answer. For once, she had nothing to say, and I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry, didn't plead. I just stood there, calm and unshaken, letting the truth carry its own weight, because for the first time, I didn't need anyone to believe me. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. The silence after the confrontation felt heavier than anything that had been said. No one moved at first. Margaret sat perfectly still, her hands folded too tightly in her lap, her usual composure cracked just enough to reveal something unfamiliar uncertainty. Ethan stood across from her, the folder still in his hands, flipping through pages he should have looked at days ago. I watched him carefully, not with hope but with clarity. I wasn't waiting to be chosen anymore. I was waiting to see who he really was. "Say something," I finally said, my voice calm but firm. Ethan looked up, his expression conflicted, his jaw tight. "I didn't want to believe it," he admitted quietly. "I thought you were overreacting." The words stung, but not as much as they would have before. "You didn't even look," I replied. That seemed to hit him harder. He turned to Margaret, his voice lower now. "Mom, you used her card. You lied." Margaret straightened slightly, her pride fighting to hold its place. "I did what was necessary. Family supports each other." Ethan shook his head, slower this time. "No, that's not support. That's taking advantage." It was the first time I had ever heard him speak to her like that. The shift was subtle, but undeniable. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Ethan found me sitting alone in the car. He looked different, less certain, less protected. "I was wrong," and he said simply, "I didn't see it. I didn't see how much this hurt you." I didn't answer right away, because for the first time, I was thinking about something I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. What if I walked away? "I need time," I said finally. "Not promises, not explanations, time." He nodded, not arguing, not defending. Inside the house, Margaret's financial access had already been cut, accounts restricted, cards deactivated. The control for the first time was no longer in her hands. And as I sat there, I realized something else too. Whether Ethan chose me or not, I had already chosen myself. A week passed before I agreed to meet Ethan again. Not at home, not in a place filled with old patterns, but at my new studio space, still unfinished, walls half painted, sunlight pouring through tall windows. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. When he walked in, he looked different, less composed, more real, like someone who had finally stopped pretending everything was under control. He stood there for a moment, taking in the space. "You built this?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "On my own." Ethan exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "I should have seen you," he said. "Not just what was happening, but who you've been this whole time." There was no excuse in his voice this time. No deflection. Just honesty. That mattered more than anything he could have said before. We talked for hours, not about blame, but about boundaries. Clear ones, necessary ones. Margaret would no longer have access to any shared finances, no involvement in our decisions, no quiet control disguised as family support. And this time Ethan was the one who said it first. Meanwhile, life had already started moving forward. Ryan's cafe had its soft opening, warm lights reflecting off the interior I designed, people filling the space with laughter and energy. Sophie's boutique followed soon after, clean, elegant, exactly as she envisioned. Word spread faster than I expected. By the end of the month, my studio wasn't just an idea anymore, it was a business. Margaret, on the other hand, had no choice but to face the consequences. With her access gone, she was forced to manage her own finances, her pride now meeting reality for the first time in years. I didn't hate her, but I no longer made space for her control. As for Ethan and me, we didn't go back to how things were. We built something new, slower, stronger, based not on assumption but respect. And standing there in my studio, I realized this wasn't just an ending, it was the first time my life truly felt like it belonged to me. If you were in my position, what would you do? Would you stay silent to protect your marriage or expose everything and risk losing it all? Would you forgive someone who said it was family, or call it exactly what it is, betrayal? And your husband, if he chose his mother over you at first, would you give him a second chance? Walk away for good? I really want to know, what would you choose?